Angela is awesome. We love her. So she's going to talk to us today about building your customer base. So you'll want to check and make sure your speakers are on and you're able to hear us. And how am I going to go down? Yes. Okay, here we are. So just kind of checking, making sure you have everything working, and we're going to get started now. So today I'm Marie Eldridge, and with me is
Mary Rollins.
And the most important, we'll have Angela. We'll give her a second here. So this is being recorded. You'll find all of this information on our website at handiquilter.com under webinar. Okay, a little glitch. There we go. And I can't wait to turn over the reins to Angela, and then she'll be in charge of all of this. And Angela, you could even speak to the part about retailers near you for service and for Handi Quilter supplies. So we're going to go back. That's it. Now it's your turn. I've done all the damage I can do.
So quick. I was a little bit longer. No, I'm just kidding. Well, now my screen just did something weird. Yeah. I don't know what happened, but I can't see my...
Okay, hold on. We'll get to...
Thanks. There we go. Let's see. Oh, I can just click that off. Oh, I could have just removed that. Well, thanks for having me. Like Marie said, I'm Angela Walters. I'm excited to be here. Talking about business is one of my favorite things to discuss, just because I feel like I've done everything wrong that you can possibly imagine. So to get to spend a little time and to say, hey, maybe you shouldn't do exactly what I did is always a good option. So in this webinar presentation, we're going to be talking about building your customer base. Now, I'm talking to anybody that's in business for themselves, really. I mean, whether you're just contemplating it or you have already decided, you've already started taking customers, this is for you. So what I'm going to do is just give you a few tips and ideas to think about when you're actually trying to get those first customers. Now, at this point in my business, I've been doing this for over 13 years, so I am very fortunate to be able to say that it's been successful for me. But I remember what it was like back when I first started, thinking, if I could just get one customer, if I could get one person to send me their quilt, how awesome would that be? And I'm here to encourage you and tell you that it really isn't that hard to get that one person and to give you tips on how to make that happen. Now, when you're sitting down and you're thinking about how you're going to start your business, the one thing I want to impress upon above everything else is to fail fast and fail cheap. What that means is everything you try is not going to work. Most stuff, in fact, might not end up doing something for you. But the thing is, you have to try, you have to get out there and do these things, and just make sure that you can do them quickly and they're not going to cost you a lot of money. So if you're presented with an opportunity, ask yourself, is it cheap and is it something that's not going to take up a lot of my time, especially since, you know, you want to be quilting customers' quilts. Now, that being said, let's talk about just the basic stuff. I mean, things that you probably already know, but maybe you just want to hear it said to you. But some things that you need to do to get started. First, you need to tell everybody. Now, I don't know about you, but that was really the hardest part for me. There's something about promoting yourself that feels kind of weird to some people, but you really do have to get it out there. Nobody is going to bring their quilts to you if they don't know that you're in business. So take a moment and kind of think through a couple scripts that you could use when you're in your guild meetings or, you know, your classroom settings. You could say, oh, this quilt, yeah, I quilted it. I'm actually doing that for customers now. Or thinking of a way that you can promote yourself in which you sound confident and comfortable and not apologetic, which usually was my biggest struggle. I mean, if you think about it, I'm 36 now. I started quilting for customers when I was 23. And so I would always say, well, I would love to quilt your quilts for you. And it didn't come off the way I wanted it to come off. So take a moment and think through that. But most of all, you have to tell everyone, even if it's people that you don't think are quilters. When they ask what you do for a living, say, I'm a professional machine quilter. Now, granted, that's going to get you a couple of weird looks. But the most important thing is you need to get those feelers out there. That way you can eventually have somebody bring you your quilt. Secondly, always have an example of your quilting. Now again, I feel like this is fairly basic, but it's something that is maybe a little overlooked with some of the quilters that I talk to and work with. So I'm not saying to carry a quilt around with you. I mean, that would be kind of weird, right? Now you want to at least have pictures of your work, maybe a nice quilted bag, something that you could show to somebody if they show interest. You can say, oh yeah, I do this, or this is exactly what I do. Just having that example will also help turn the focus from you to what you offer. So if you find that your struggle is really kind of promoting yourself, maybe focusing on that item that you have might help make that just a little more easier. And again, another very basic tip, but get around other quilters. Now, when I got my machine, I wasn't focused on starting a business. I just wanted to quilt my own quilts. But I quickly discovered that I love the machine quilting part much more than the piecing. So that was actually what drove me to start taking in customer quilts. At that point, I wasn't a member of a guild or anything, and so that was, something I needed to kind of get in and figure out. So you need to be around as many quilters as you can, whether it's online, in clubs and groups and forums, whether it's in person at guilds, or even classes. The whole idea is your target audience are the people that are making quilt tops, so you need to be around them. So really kind of get out there, join those groups, and try to really constantly promote yourself in a non-annoying way. And I think that is key. You don't want to be, the used car salesperson of your group, but you want to make sure that they know that you do great work and that your services are available for purchase. Okay, embrace social media. Now here's the thing, when I started doing the business consulting side of what I do, this was a little bit, a couple years ago, it was a little bit harder to get people on board with social media, but now I feel like that is, an obvious thing. So don't be afraid to really get on there, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, show pictures of what you're doing. It's just more ways to get your work out there. Now this is kind of a double-edged sword, because if you're using, let's say, your personal Facebook thing to share pictures, you are your business, so you need to conduct yourself in a way that you would want, to represent your business. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, so just be aware of that. But also local options. Remember, the point here is to get out as much as you can. I like to joke, you throw a lot of stuff at the wall and see what sticks, right? You want to get out there and embrace those options. So if you're somebody that doesn't love doing that kind of thing, it doesn't mean that you can't have a great business. It's just something that will make it a little bit more helpful. I mean, ultimately, you want to share pictures of your work, and you want to get people a way to refer you to their friends. So that's a whole nother lecture right there. But just know that using that time and that, we're already on Facebook anyway, we might as well be promoting our business while we're there, right? Okay, so the most important part, though, is to realize you just need one. You just need one customer. You know how quilters are. We love to talk. We love to share the newest thing, especially our new quilter that we love. So you just have to find one customer. And once you find that one customer, then they start telling people, and it starts branching off from there. So do not get discouraged when you're starting your business. Now, if you remember, I started my business. I wasn't a part of a local guild. And so when I went to my first guild meeting, they were doing a quilt show. And I thought, well, I've never been to a quilt show. This would be kind of fun. Are we sensing, a theme going on here? And so I went to the quilt show, and I decided to be a vendor. Now, if you were going to go vend at a quilt show for your very first time, never having vended before, never having been to a quilt show, I'm assuming you would probably do a little research beforehand. Unfortunately, I did not. I showed up to my booth, and I had my table, I had one quilt draped over my table, and my business cards. Now, have you ever been to a quilt show where a vendor's booth had been so empty? I doubt that you have. Yeah, everybody around me had tons of fabric, tons of product, and I quickly realized, whew, this isn't working out the way I thought. But it was okay. It was only $50, and it was only a couple days of my time. But I did incidentally get one customer from that show, and I'll tell you a little bit more about her later. Now, one question that comes up a lot is, should you give discounts? And it's a very important thing, I think, to discuss, so we're going to spend a little time here, because I know that feeling, right? Well, if you're anything like me, I just want somebody really bad. I want to get some customers. I'm going to give a discount. And that's fine. We all love sales, right? I mean, think about when you go into your local quilt shop and they have their discount fabrics, of course. So discounts can be effective, but you have to use them in the right way. So if you're planning to go this route to get customers in, let me give you just a few suggestions. So first, you want to make sure it has a specific limited duration. All right, so what that means is I'm not going to say in front of my whole guild, I've just started quilting for customers and I'm going to give every person their first quilt half price. Now, you want to make it specific and limited, right? You want to say for this month only, whoever brings me a quilt gets half off their first quilt or something like that, should you choose to do it. What this does is this prevents you from being in that sticky situation where, let's say you've quilted a quilt for Martha and Martha went and told her sister, yeah, I got it for half price. And 6 months later, when you're already busy, having Martha's sister come and ask for her quilt half off. So make sure it has a specific limited duration. I mean, think about it. Anywhere we go that has a sale, it's only a limited time, right? You just want to make sure that your customers know that that's the case for your quilting services as well. Now, you want to also make sure that the customer, should they come and bring you their quilt for a discount, that they're aware of the pre-discount price. This is key. We are so likely to attach value to the amount of money that we pay for something. It doesn't seem rational, right? But if you go somewhere and you spend more money, we tend to perceive that as being more valuable. So what we don't want to do is put a low value on our quilting just because we're giving them a discount. So when you provide them with that invoice, should you decide to do discounts, make sure you put right on there, this is what it would have cost. So quilting, this is my normal charge, it would have been $250, but then you can have the discount and the % off, or however you want to go about doing that. That's going to do two things. That's going to help provide value to your service. They're going to feel like that you provided a valuable service, but that they scored a deal. Right? It's the same reason that anytime we go into a shopping center and it says original price, the higher the original price and the lower the sale price, the better we feel about the deal that we got. Or maybe that's just me. I think I might just have a shopping problem. Anyway, so you want to make sure they're aware of that pre-discounted price. Another thing this does is it prevents that awkward situation when they bring a second quilt back, not realizing how much your regular services would have charged. So they kind of know already what you're charging. They know they're getting a one-time limited deal, and then also when they tell their friends about how much they love your quilting, that they'll be able to say, oh, it was about this much, but I got it for this much. So always include that on there. But above all, do not propose it as a new quilter discount. If you are confident in your services and you are taking customers, you do not need to spread the fact that you're new at taking customers, right? Because you may have been quilting for years and years before then. So that's the one thing I did wrong. I would say, I'm really new at this and I want to take your quilt, so I'll give you a discount. Well, that will put the fear into somebody who just spent a lot of time making their precious quilt top. So be sure that it's not proposed as a new quilter discount. It's a, limited sale or something like that because you want to make sure that they're still feeling comfortable leaving their quilt for you. So let's talk about a couple different alternate options, and sorry for the text layout on there. There was a little bit of translation lost with the changing of types. Anyway, instead of having a discount, maybe brainstorm some different options that will accomplish the same thing, but maybe give you a little bit more impact. So first of all, a flash sale. So who doesn't love a flash sale, right? Or a limited time only sale. So something that you could put out to your guild is, hey, for the month of June, or whatever month it is, this is what I'm offering. So it kind of takes it away from being a new quilter type of sale to a, hey, I happen to have a little free time and I'd like to get your quilts. So that's a better way to promote it. A second thing, instead of giving a straight discount, which is something I always went to, like I just went there, but I since then realized maybe a better option would be a value-added offer. So like an upgrade for free. If you think about this, this is something that, when you go to a hotel, they're not giving you a discount on your room rate. But sometimes they'll give you some upgrades and you still feel like you've got a great experience. So maybe for the month of June only, every quilt comes in gets free batting. Or every quilt that comes in gets something, whatever that is that you want to offer. It gets a free upgrade to the next higher tier of your quilting. I mean, think through that, and you want to be very clear to yourself and your customers, whatever that value added offer is. But what you're not doing is taking percentage off of your bottom line. You're just kind of adding a little something there. So that's an option as well. And then a multiple quilt discount. This is always a good one to go to, because who doesn't have tons of quilts laying around in their room, especially the customers that you want to quilt for. So if you can entice them to bring not one but two of their quilts for a % off or for a deal, then that even helps your business that much more. So a couple different options there. Now I know we kind of glazed through some different ideas, but as long as you are getting the word out there, you're around other quilters, it's not going to be whether or not you can get your first customer. It's really going to be how you handle all the customers that you get. But let's talk about growing your business. So this is, somebody that has gotten a quilt or two, a customer or two, and you want to kind of really keep that rolling, right? I say you only need one quilter. It's like a snowball. You start off at the hill, the snowball starts small, but as it rolls down, it gets bigger and bigger, and pretty soon you'll just be hanging on to the snowball, hoping you don't get ran over. So growing your business, a few things that once you kind of get that momentum rolling that you can do to really kind of ramp up your business. And the first one would be to develop a niche. Now, whether you say it niche or niche, this is key. You want to become known for something. Hopefully you can see it on there. Finding out what you're known for. There's a lot of quilters out there that are quilting for customers, and that's great. There's enough for everybody. But to stand out or to kind of have your own thing, you need to be known for something. Now, a niche has to meet 3 criteria. You have to enjoy doing it, there needs to be a demand for it, and you can charge accordingly for it. So let's talk about what that would look like. So for me, there's a demand for all over quilting. A lot of customers just want to get their quilts quilted. They don't mind what design goes on there. You can charge accordingly for it. You can make good money for your time spent. But I personally do not enjoy quilting all overs, so I don't offer it. That's not my niche. An example would be maybe you love feathers, right? So you like quilting feathers. You know there's a demand for feathers, because who doesn't love feathers? Well, I know there's some people that don't, but we still love them anyway. We love feathers, right? And you can charge accordingly for it. So that would be your niche, but it has to be something that you enjoy. Now, does that mean that you're only going to quilt feathers on your customers' quilts? It does not. No, you still are going to do all the services you already offer, but you're going to always point yourself back to whatever it is that you want to be known for. So for example, let's say you want to be the quickest quilter this side of the river. You enjoy quilting, all hours of the night. You know that there's plenty of quilts to do, and you can charge accordingly for it. You can get paid for your time. So maybe when you're standing up and you say in front of your guild, I quilt for customers, I have a 2-week turnaround, and I love to do it, and I get them done fast. So if you have that last minute quilt that you need done, then you can bring it to me. And what that does is helps people think, oh, you need a quilt done fast? I know a gal that can do that. She was just telling us about it. All right. Now, an example of where that wouldn't work is, let's say you love quilting cat faces on your quilt. Well, you could probably charge for that, but I'm not sure there would be a huge demand. So as you go, you'll kind of figure out what that is and always point back to it. For me, I want to be an encouraging teacher. So everything that I do and say is encouraging, and I try to really hone in on that because I feel like that's my niche. And then you want to, like I said, point to it as often as possible. And it should change as your business grows. If you're starting out and you don't have a huge wait list, you can have that 2-week turnaround. Great. That's going to be your niche starting off. But as you grow and evolve, it's going to change, and that's fine. But you want to make sure that you know what your selling points are and how you can really drive people to that. So that would be a good homework assignment for you, is to sit down and think about what style of quilting that you love to do that meets those 3 criteria. So let's say you love custom quilting. You like a ruler, you like doing all that stuff. What you could do is partner up or find another quilter that doesn't. Let's say you know Sally down the road, she loves doing all overs. You can go to her and say, hey, when I have a customer ask me for an all over design, I'm going to send her your way, and I hope that you would do the same. So there's some really good opportunities for co-marketing there, because all quilters like different things. All professional machine quilters like offering different services. So don't be afraid to really reach out there and kind of make those connections that way. Another way is the gold standard, the word of mouth referral. It doesn't matter how much advertising you do on Facebook. It doesn't matter how much blogging you do. There's nothing more valuable than one quilter telling another quilter, I love my machine quilter, you should try it out. So those referrals are key. And so you want to make sure that you're trying really hard to kind of give it a good environment for that to happen. So that's the ultimate type of advertising above all else. So how are we going to do that? Well, you have to ask for the referral. I read a whole book on it, and if you like reading business books as much as I do, it's called The Referral Engine, and it's not craft business based, it's more big business based, but there's a few nuggets that I was able to pull out that I thought was brilliant. And the number one was ask for the referral. We just assume that our customers are going to want to tell everybody how much they love us, but they might not for two reasons. One, they might not think about it. Sadly, our quilting business is probably not the number one thought in their mind. And secondly, and things I've seen in the past, some customers are worried that you'll get too busy to quilt for them. I'll never forget when I was out there hustling and trying to get customers and trying to build my business, I had one lady say, oh, I heard a gal from my group is having you quilt her quilt. I was trying to keep you a secret and all to myself so you wouldn't get too busy. So that was kind of funny. And I said, no, I will always love you. You'll always be my favorite. But the idea is you need to ask for it. Now, you don't have to say, please tell everybody how much you love me. No. How you go about doing that is say, I hope you love my quilting so much that you'll want to tell all your friends about it. Same for this webinar. I hope that you love what I'm saying so much that you'll tell other people to come on Handi Quilter's website and check it out. Right? All of a sudden you think, oh, I would like to tell other people that. So don't be afraid to ask for it. If asking in person is a hard thing for you to do, no problem. Put it on your invoice or something. For many years, at the bottom of my invoice, I always had the best compliment is a referral. You just kind of want to let them know that that's kind of the livelihood of your business. Plus, think about it. Have you ever been to a great restaurant that you loved and you've loved everything about it? Well, I like to eat, so that's not fairly uncommon for me. Well, what I like to do is go and tell everybody, have you tried that restaurant? It's so great. People love to know things. They love to connect people. And so if you give them that kind of encouragement, that little reminder, they'll be glad to do it. So this is what you should get used to saying. I hope you love the quilting so much you tell all your friends about me. Practice that in the mirror at least twice. Okay, you can contemplate whether or not you want to compensate for referrals. That's completely up to you. There's loyalty programs out there. If you have a friend, bring me a quilt, I'll give you this % off. I've never delved into that, mostly because it was a lot of work to keep up, and that was not anything I wanted to get into. Another thing to think about is studies have shown when people are compensated for their referrals, they're actually less likely to do it because it feels less genuine. So you could do that. You could try it and see if it works. Again, try, fail fast and fail cheap. Go ahead and try it out. And if it works for you, that's great. What I've always been a bigger fan is rewarding them after the fact, right? So if I have a customer that has sent her whole quilting group to me, I'll reach out to her and like, hey, I really appreciate that. Thanks so much. I'm going to give you XYZ off your next quilt or whatever it is. Then she kind of has that feeling of, oh, I'm appreciated without, feeling like you bought her endorsement. So that's just something to think about. All right, so then moving on from referrals, presentation is key, not presentation is key. Presentation is key. Once you get your first customer, then you've built your customer base. Now you can really start to appeal or to really kind of refine your customer base. Because here's the thing, quilting for customers is not scalable. In fact, if you've been quilting for a while, you've probably already been through this, right? Where you want so badly to get a few customers, then all of a sudden you have a lot, and then you're burnt out because you're trying to keep up what you've done. Ultimately, your time is limited. So what you want to do is be able to get to a point where you can be pickier about the quilts that you take and the customers that you keep. It's a true fact. I mean, you have your customers that are your A-list. Look at anytime you fly, any hotel you go to, they cater to their best customers. And it's because they know who's bringing in the money. They show, it's like the 20-80 rule. 20% of your customers will bring 80% of your business. So you really want to hone those in. And then, as you go, kind of build up that base. So presentation is the key. You need to set yourself apart from other quilters. Again, there's a lot of people out there doing work. There's enough for everybody. This is not a cutthroat competition. Help other quilters, answer questions, do what you need to do, but provide a great customer experience because you want to set yourself apart. It's just like if you ever go to get your hair done. Once you find a hairstylist you love, you don't want to change, right? So you want to set yourself apart from everybody else by being yourself, and only you can be yourself. So think through your process. As your customer brings their quilt to you, think about that whole process, how you can set yourself apart from other quilters. Now, if you're thinking, I don't even have one customer, Angela, perfect. That's the best time to start, right? You start before it's too late. So think through, how could you present the finished quilt? What does the invoicing look like? What can you do to make it look like a professional experience all the way through? I mean, you ultimately want to find little ways to give your customer a great experience. Here's the thing, we're all pretty much offering the same thing, right? I'm going to take your quilt top, I'm going to quilt it, and I'm going to give it back to you and hope you love it a lot. It's those little things that you're going to be able to do that will provide that great customer experience. So just kind of think through that, what that looks like for you. I mean, if you've ever seen an unboxing video on YouTube, where people get Apple products and they will film themselves unwrapping this beautiful presentation, it's still just a phone in there, but they're loving that presentation. They're loving taking it, opening it up, and you want their whole experience with you from start to finish to be like that experience, a great thing. So little ways you can do: handwritten cards, professional invoicing, always acting professional in every area of your business life and stuff like that. And so again, with presentation, so whether that's investing a few dollars in some nice bags, investing in, however you want to present it. And again, that can change as well. I remember when I first started quilting for customers, my husband had some Subway restaurants, so he would bring home the iceberg lettuce boxes, and that's what I would mail the customers their quilts back in an old Subway box. Well, I had a customer one time say that I had sent it to her business, and her secretary had stuck it in the fridge because it said perishable on the outside. So I realized then I needed to maybe get new boxes and nice boxes. So as you're going, you can do those little things. It doesn't have to be expensive, but it really does make a huge difference. And of course, quilting execution. A great customer service experience is not going to make great quilting or bad quilting great. I mean, if you've ever been to a restaurant where the service was fantastic but the food was not, you're not going to go back. So that means making sure that everything you put out there is worthy of putting your name on it. And unfortunately, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's turning down customers that want something that is not going to look good, that's up to you. But you just need to remember that once that quilt is out there, it has your name on it and it's floating around. So know that. And then following up with your customers after the fact. That's, if you've ever bought anything at a store and got those annoying emails afterwards, that's what that kind of looks like, in a less annoying format, of course. So maybe keeping a list of customers and sending them a card and saying, hey, I hope you loved your quilt, or whatever experience or occasion that quilt was for. Anything like that, I'm so glad I got to do your baby quilt. I hope your daughter-in-law loved it, blah, blah, blah. Well, don't actually write blah. But so following up and having a good experience. And I think you find that if you're providing that great one-of-a-kind experience with great quilting, they're not going to be able to help but tell their friends about you. Now, I said in the beginning, you want to fail fast, you want to fail cheap. Everything is not going to work out. If I had plenty of time, I could tell you all the things that I've done that have not panned out. But the thing is, you got to get out there and you have to try. So if you think back to when I was at that Quilt Guild show, vending at that booth, all those years ago, it was horribly embarrassing. And I thought, this is never going to be good. I had a few people that came by and they picked up cards out of pity, and nobody called me except for one person about a month later. She'd called me and said she was getting ready to open a quilt shop, and asked me if I would do her samples for her shop. Well, of course I would. And that ended up being a huge impetus in my business, you know, people seeing it, having it up in shops. Well, then it gets even better because a few years after that, she called me and said that her daughter was going to become a fabric designer and would I like to quilt for her? And her daughter's name was Tula Pink. So you never know how it's going to turn out. So don't be frustrated. Just keep getting out there and hustling. And I think you'll find that those customers will come pretty quick. Now, for more tips and ideas, my website is quiltingismytherapy.com, and we have some time left, so I thought we could open it to questions. Oh, good, you guys didn't leave. I was hoping you hadn't left me.
Sorry. No, we do have a couple of questions, so I'm going to let those through.
Yeah. Can you speak about what type of business insurance she recommends and what type is recommended? Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm not going to make any recommendations because I'm not qualified on that. You do need to check with your insurance person. You might want to contact an attorney, not an attorney, an accountant, all that kind of stuff. I'm the worst person to ask about that. You want to get a professional opinion, and I'm only professional opinion about what I like. So insurance does not qualify for that. So sorry, I can't be more help for that. Any tips for growing a business before buying a long arm? I do all my own quilts on domestic and want to get a business base before making a financial jump. Yep, that's so true. Here's the thing. You want to start small and grow big. I always feel nervous for people that are, you know, starting out their business with a huge loan right off the bat. Are you shaking your head at me? Yeah? No? We're good? Sorry. One great option.
If I have my audio on it, so I'm just, there you go.
Got it. Okay. You're fine. I didn't know if you were giving me the shut up signal or no? Yeah, we're good? Oh. So starting your business, I'm a huge fan of starting small and growing it, right? Failing fast and failing small. So what you could do is maybe rent time on a machine. So even if it's for customer quilts. So if there is a long arm facility or, rental place around you, getting comfortable enough to rent a long arm would be a great option. That way you can use a long arm and still make some money on it. You could definitely quilt on your domestic sewing machine. I would just have the customers base their own quilt sandwiches because I can't imagine the productivity that would come down with that. So the thing is, just start. Just start doing something. If it doesn't work, change it. Remember, as long as it's cheap and it's fast, you're not going to be out anything if it doesn't work. Have you ever had to deal with a returned quilt? If this ever happens, how would you handle it? Oh, I just had a returned quilt a couple weeks ago. It's heartbreaking. It's devastating. I'm not going to lie. I was a little okay. And I ended up giving her money back completely because she wasn't happy. You have to decide what's best for you with an unhappy customer. And the best time to decide what to do is not in the heat of that moment. It's not. You want to think through what you would do before that happens. You want to have that planned out, even if you write it down. So for the most part, here's some guidelines that I would give you. If it's an execution thing, if the tension is bad and you didn't realize it, if the stitching does not look really good, like she's coming back and saying, I like the design, I don't like the quilting. Well, you need to think about what you're going to do in that situation. Ultimately, again, your name is on every quilt that goes out, and if I have a quilt that goes out, even if they're not in love with it, I want them to still say, she did everything she could to make me happy. So I would, and like I did in this most recent scenario, I gave her money back 100% of it. Because at the very least, when she showed her friends, because they're going to, she can say, well, at least I got it free. All right. Now, if it's a little bit of a different, which that's not why, she wasn't questioning the execution of the quilting, I just have to say. She didn't like the thread color I used. But she came back a couple times, and so then I knew that she was truly unhappy. If it's something like, oh, I told you to quilt whatever, and you quilted feathers, and I don't like feathers. Oh, that's a little tricky, right? Because there's times when you know that you were fine. They should have said that. Well, one, you've learned something for next time, right? Always ask what they do not like. Number one question, hi, my name's Angela. What kind of quilting do you hate, right? That's how you kind of go about that conversation. You could always try to give them a discount on a future quilt. So usually if they're bringing something to your attention, something like, oh, I just didn't love the stitch length on this. But I mean, the quilt looks fine. You can usually tell how upset they are. And you could say, hey, I'll give you 25% off your next quilt. So that's a great option because that gets them to bring in their next quilt. Rarely do I try to credit money back on something I've already done, but it just depends. Sit down and think it through and know that, you can change that. You're not stuck to it, but that plan gives you something to refer back to. So when you're in that heat of the moment, like even just thinking about it, I'm getting a little like shaky about it. You can say, oh, well, my policy is this, but I can do that. So that's a good question. That's a hard one. Just know it happens and it's going to be okay. The first time really, really sucks. After that, it still sucks, but not quite as bad. So as long as you know that you're doing your best work, that's all that you can ask for. Stacy asked, do you trim your customer quilts before you return them? I don't, for two reasons. I don't want to take the time to trim it. And now when I talk about trimming, I guess I'm not going to cut it right along the edge of the quilt. I'm not going to trim it for binding. And then also I don't want to make that judgment call, because if that quilt is not square and I have to square it up and then I'm cutting off stuff. But if you want a nice presentation, trimming it 2 to 3 inches, let's see, whoop, this way, a couple inches away from the edge so that you don't have all the stuff hanging off the side is a great option as well. So I will go ahead and roughly trim off the extra, but I don't trim it right in there. Am I doing good just to answer the questions, or do you have a particular one? You're fine? Thumbs up? Okay, Lori asked, what process do you use to bring in and track your quilts? That's a great question. There's so many different things you can do, but as long as you have a process that works for you and you always do it, you don't want to end up, 3 years in with a ton of quilts that you don't know where they go. I mean, I'm not talking from experience at all on that. One thing I love and I encourage people to use is called Insightly. It's INSIGHTLY. It's a free program online, and what you can do is track customer quilts, and it's on the cloud, and so you can always go view it. But ultimately, it's whatever works for you. If it's a pen and paper, if it's a spreadsheet, if it's, that online thing, it just needs to fit your preferences. Some people like to see it on paper, then do that. Some people, like me, will lose that piece of paper, so I have to do it on the cloud. So using that is always a good option. So try something. Try it for a couple weeks. If you're thinking this isn't working, then change it up. But whatever you use it for every quilt. Oh, Vicki and Patty had some good questions about what to charge. Oh, that's such a sticky wicket. Is there an average charge rate? It all depends. It really does. And so what you're charging should be, it depends on your area, your experience, and what you're going to offer. Now, I can't tell you exactly what to charge, but I can tell you not to do what I did, which is when I started my customer business, this is many years ago, don't judge me, but I went and found what everybody else was charging, and I charged less than that. The thing is, once you start, it's a lot higher to raise your prices than it is to have sales, right, on your prices. So look and see what the average rate is and try to stay right in there. Because what happens is if you charge less, it's going to be viewed that your work isn't as good. And you might get more quilts, but you're also working for less money. So you'd rather get fewer quilts for more money. And I'm absolutely the worst person to ask about this, because I'm always the type that's like, oh, it just seems like so much. The best thing I can tell you is if you don't get a sick feeling in your stomach, little bit icky feeling in your stomach when you give the customer the invoice, you're not charging enough. You want to make sure that you're charging to make your time worth it. And so once you feel comfortable with the price, then you know it's time to raise it. Another good rule of thumb is if you have a ton of quilts built up. I always hear people say, oh, I'm backed up 8 weeks or 8 months. I think your rates are too low. You want to, you don't want to have all that backup. You want to cut your quilts down, and you want to have, less quilts at the higher rate. So one good thing that I found that helped me is just to establish a set rate increase every year. Every year I'm raising it 1/4 cent or whatever it is. Your customers will get used to that. It's just a little bit at a time. It's a lot easier than being 4 years in and realizing you've never raised your rates and then trying to raise them significantly. So I know that wasn't the answer anybody was wanting, but I'm not going to be able to get tied down to a price because it's so different for everybody. How do you turn down a customer in a nice way? You price yourself out of their range. It's true. I mean, it's a collaborative relationship when you quilt for somebody. So you need to make sure that it's compatible in several different ways. So sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes it's not going to work, for whatever reason. So you could just say, I'm really sorry. I'm so backed up right now. I really can't take your quilt, but I have a number of a gal that does really great work that I feel like you would like. Now, if it's a customer that you're pricing out of, or trying to turn down in a nice way because they're mean, make sure that you're not passing that on to a friend, because that's not very nice. But the idea is, give them another option. So I always try to say no, but, right? So if somebody wants to have me do a quilt, I'll say, oh, I can't, but I have a person, that I can refer you to. Or you can just quote a price that if they do bring your quilt, it's worth it for you financially. So that's a little bit of a trickier situation. Usually just saying you're too backed up will kind of take care of that for you. What do I provide as my average turnaround time? It's so hard to say because it's different now. But let's say in the beginning when I was starting out, the best way not to go about this is letting them dictate the time. I got into a really bad habit of that, of letting everybody say, I need it before this date, no matter what that date was, and that's just where it went in line. Well, what happens is you're constantly jumping from fire to fire, and that's a quick way to get burnt out. I mean, there's just no way around that. So what you can do, what I would suggest, is think about realistically, with everything else you have going on in your life, how many quilts you can get done in a week. And I just have to let you know, my husband, if he hears this, will cringe because he knows this is not how I'm good at doing. And then that's what your schedule is. Much like a hairstylist would schedule her time, we kind of get into a habit, or I tend to get into a habit of, I can fit it in at night, I can make it work. But if you schedule it like, I can only do this many per week, it will really help prevent you from taking on too much. And I mean, I know I say this, but I promise you, it's not going to be getting a customer. It's going to be how to manage the ones you have and not burning out. So deciding how many you can handle in a week and scheduling it that way. I'm scheduled here. Looks like I'll be able to work on it this week, and then they can decide, whether or not they want to give you their quilt. And so it just depends on you. So do I have any books in regard to the long arm business? I have plenty in my head that I need to get out, just none on that are actually finished. The thing is, when it comes to books, the one thing that helped me was I just started reading all sorts of business books. There's not one, there's some good craft business-based books, but if you want to innovate or use things that work in other industries, in our industry, read other industries' books. And so take out the nuggets or the little things that you can apply to your business. So, the referral engine, the E-Myth is a great book. It talks about how to work on your business and not just in your business. Anything by Zig Ziglar is fantastic about setting goals. So just get out there and start reading audiobooks. That's what I love to use when I'm quilting. Do you have customers that get a discount all the time? Maybe someone that's referred lots of customers. The official answer to that is no, but the truth is yeah. So for some of the collaborative relationships that I have, they get a different pricing structure. You have to be very careful with that because they're going to talk. So the person that you're working with, is, you want to make sure that they know that they can't really go tell everybody what your rate is, because then that's going to, always cause problems for you. So, but you also need to make sure that it's beneficial. As you start quilting, beware the person that says, if you'll do it for free, I'll get you good promotion out of it. It really needs to be mutually beneficial for what you're providing. So have a specific limited time for an amount. And then if it works, great. If you're not getting anything of it, like I'm thinking about a quilt shop. Let's say a quilt shop wants you to do their samples and they want you to do them for half price. Okay, well that's great because you'll have stuff hanging up, but how long are you going to do that for? And are they really going to tell people that you did it? Usually I would say, honestly, I'm going to provide the best experience. You won't have to wait longer for your quilts. I'll make sure you get them when you need them, and that's what you'll be paying. That's the value added that you'll be getting. If they end up going to somebody cheaper, that's fine. You don't want to get into a price war because the only way you're going to end up is at the very bottom. Don't do it. What social media platforms are a good place to start? And what strategies do you have to increase your followers? Great question, Jill. Facebook and Instagram are two of my favorites. Pinterest is great, but Pinterest is more for projects, I feel like. I would use your Facebook, and you could start a separate page if you'd like, and then Instagram to show pictures of what you're doing. So you're wanting to put beautiful pictures out of your quilting, and most smartphones can take great pictures of that. Do not focus on your following. That's the one thing I feel like a lot of people get really caught into. Oh, this person has more, or I don't have that many. it's not the number of your following, it's the passion of your following. If you have 50 people that are all great customers, that are all in love with your work, that is much better than 10,000 random followers that came because you used the right hashtag, right? So don't focus on the followers, focus on the content, pretty pictures, up close, highlight your customers, you know, put engaging content out there, and the followers will come for sure. These are such great questions. Patty, how many options do you offer to your customers, such as patterns, thread color, type of batting, stitch length, etc.? Here's the thing. It's been proven. The more options there are, the more likely somebody will have buyer's remorse. So you want to have enough offerings so they feel like they have a choice, but not so much that it's overwhelming. I mean, have you ever been into a store that has all sorts of stuff and you're like, I don't even know where to start? So start with what you want to offer, the base, right? Your minimum viable product. Let's say you offer 2 services, edge to edge and then a more semi-custom. Let's say you offer a few patterns, whatever that is. Let your customers guide you, because they'll ask. If you have 5 patterns or 5 things that you offer and they say, oh, I really wanted feathers, or I really wanted this, once you start hearing that, you can add to it. I just recently opened a quilt shop, which is a whole nother ball of wax over there. And that's one thing I quickly realized. The people coming in, they'll tell me what they want. I just need to wait and add as they're coming in. So don't feel like, Patty, that you have to have everything figured out. Have your basic, your minimum viable product, the basics that you need, and then you can add as you go. I offer just, well, in the beginning, it was like 3 options, all over, semi-custom, and custom. But what I kept get in the habit of doing was providing custom work at an all-over price. So now I just offer one style of quilting to my customers, and it's just Angela quilting. But that's the benefit of getting your business built up to where you have those few customers that you can really, you know, draw on. So start with what you've got. Maybe, let's just say 2 types of batting. Stitch length is easy enough. You just let them guide you. Thread colors, I would just ask them, I guess. But you don't need a lot, I guess is what I'm saying, to get going. So, okay, do you need permission to post customers' quilts on Facebook? I always get it. I don't know if you need it or not. Usually the pictures that I'm posting are up close of the quilting, so you can't really even tell that's a customer quilt. If I'm going to blog about a quilt, or I'm going to put, you know, where you can see the actual whole quilt, then I'll make sure I'll say, hey, I'm going to put it on there. Are you fine with that? It's not anything formal or anything, you know, written out, just a quick, it's good courtesy. And plus, you want them to know you're using it because you want them to tell their friends, hey, so-and-so highlighted me on her blog or whatever. So it's good business just to get their permission, but just a quick ask is usually enough. If you're starting out, do you need a business license? Yes, you do. And you would want to contact your local government for that and be prepared to jump through some hoops. It's a blast. But you'll have to there. Oh, hey, quilt shop gal. Aw, you're so sweet. You're an amazing woman, too. I can't see any other questions. Do you have one off the top of your head for me? I can't hear you.
Oh, it's been awesome. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Any questions that you can think of?
No, good stuff. It's been so nice having you.
Oh, it's been so nice to be here.
Okay, so we're going to cut the presentation because the audio is so bad when we have both of us. So
Okay.
Thanks again, and we will answer everyone's questions, and we'll get back to you.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, so now I'm going to go to this one. Okay. So thank you for joining us today. And again, you can go to your retailer, or you can remember, you don't have to remember all of this. Everything is on the website. So join us again next month, and thanks so much for coming, Angela. We really appreciate all your advice.
Hey, everybody.